Well, for your sake, we'll just think that everybody's here for you.
What's up? You doing all right?
I think you ought to do it.
Committee will come to order. We've got several things on the docket today. First thing I'm going to take up is the governor's appointment resolutions, and then we'll do subcommittee reports after that. All right. So there we have five appointment resolutions from the governor. One of them needs to be amended. SJR 294 needs to be amended to remove an appointee to the Commonwealth Transportation Board who recently resigned due to a conflict of interest. So I'm going to call that resolution up first. And Meg, if you could give us the amendment to it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 10 of SJ 294, we'll be striking lines 590 and 591, removing Henry Connors Jr. from the CTB.
All right. Is there a motion on that amendment?
So moved.
All right. It's motion and second on that amendment. Is there any discussion on the amendment? All those in favor of adopting the amendment, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, the amended resolution is before us. Is there a motion on the resolution? So motion and second to report SJR 294. Is there any discussion? All those in favor or opposed will vote. Clerk will close the roll. The resolution is reported. Now, if we can, unless there's an objection, I'd like to take the other four resolutions up in a block.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to remove the Senate Joint Resolution 292.
All right. We'll send it, resolution 292 is removed from the block. Is there any other requests? That's all. All right, there's a motion and a second to report SJR 293, 294, and 296.
Has it been moved?
Yeah, it's been moved. All right, all those in, cast your ballot. All right, clerk will close the roll. Those resolutions are reported. Senate Joint Resolution 292, Delegate Rasul.
Mr. Chair, I have an amendment to Senate Joint Resolution 292.
All right,
I move to strike lines 23 and 24.
23 and 24. Delegate Sickles.
Isn't the proper move just to remove them from the block? To remove that, or?
It could be done a couple different ways. You know, if you just want to strike them and not appoint them, you would strike those lines from the resolution and then vote, you know, if that amendment were to
Speak to
pass.
the motion at the appropriate time.
All right, go ahead.
I believe this is Mr. Paler at the Department of Environmental Quality, who is a dedicated public servant who has served this Commonwealth well over many years for both Republicans and Democratic administrations. This gentleman is doing his best to follow the laws of the United States and the laws of this Commonwealth, and I would strongly urge you to vote against this move to strike his name from the block.
All right, is there any other discussion? Doug Atlantis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to follow up on Delegate Sickles' comments and say that for Mr. Paler to be removed, I think is a big mistake. And I say that because there have been cases where I've disagreed with him on issues related to policy and how the department has purported itself, and I've agreed with him. But the reason I think he doesn't need to be removed because he has basically tried to interpret and make sure the department is following both federal and state law. And again, that's what a director of an agency should be doing, not based on what the politics of the issue is, but more importantly on what the law says and how they apply that in the agency. And I think he has done that. And again, as I say, He's been one of those directors that has been nonpartisan and tried to follow what federal and state law related to environmental policy require us to do. So I hope we will not remove him from the resolution.
All right, any other discussion on the amendment? All right, there's a motion and a second.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, has there been a second?
Has there been a?
I didn't hear a second.
All right. Is there a second on Delegate Rasul's amendment? All right,
I would move to pass by the amendment.
all right, there's a substitute, there's a motion to pass by the amendment and a second. We'll go ahead and vote that on the board.
Mr. Chairman,
Yep,
parliamentary inquiry.
go, state it.
To pass by means the resolution be in its original form if this was,
That's correct.
so if you wanted to leave Paler in, you would vote yes on this.
Yes, if you did not want to amend the resolution, if you wanted to leave it as what it was presented, you would vote yes on this motion to pass by the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
It's passed by the amendment, not adopted. Okay. Well, that's probably the bill. If there's no objection, can we do this on a voice vote? Is that okay? All right. All right, clerk, call the roll, and this is again the motion to pass by the amendment. So if you do not want to amend the resolution and remove the person, you would vote yes. If you do want to remove the person, you would vote no. Is everybody clear?
No, sir.
All right.
No, sir. Could you repeat that? I
The-
think you just said the opposite of Delegate Rush.
No.
You didn't, okay.
This is a motion to pass by the amendment, which if you pass by it, you've defeated the amendment.
Okay, thank you,
Yeah.
sir.
So again, if you do not want to remove this name from the appointment resolution, you would vote yes on this motion. If you do want to remove the name, you would vote no on this motion. All right, clerk, call the roll.
Ingram. Jones.
Yes.
Landis.
Yes.
Ransom. Yes. O'Quinn.
Yes.
Rush. Yes. Fowler. Yes. Adams. Yes. Leftwich. Yes. Head. Yes. McGuire. Yes. Sickles.
Yes.
Rasul.
No.
Lindsay.
Yes.
Price. Van Valkenburg. I'm sorry, yes. Guzman. Turpin. Tran. Converse Fowler. Krizik.
All right, and chair is yes.
Cole.
The motion to pass by the amendment passes, so the amendment is defeated.
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion
State it.
to report Senate Joint Resolution 292.
All right, there's a motion and second to report Senate Joint Resolution 292 without an amendment. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor will vote yes. Those opposed, nay. All right, clerk will close the roll. The resolution is reported. All right, now we'll move on into subcommittee reports. What's that? We already voted the other ones. All right, Delegate, let's see, Leftwich, do you have a subcommittee report?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The first bill on my report is House Bill 1719, patroned by Delegate Hurst. It deals with the Campaign Disclosure Act of 2006, and it makes the provisions of the Campaign Finance Disclosure Act applicable to any candidate for a town office in a town with a population of less than 25,000, as such candidate accepts contributions or makes expenditures in excess of that sum. The bill reported out of subcommittee on a vote of 6-0, and I so move. Do you want to handle these in a block, or do you want to handle?
No, we'll go one by one, because not all of them came out unanimously. All right, there's a motion and a second to report House Bill 1719. Is there any discussion? All those in favor will vote yes. Clerk will close the roll. That bill is reported. Delegate Leftwich.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next bill is House Bill 1929, patroned by Delegate Yancey. And there's a substitute, so I move the substitute.
All right, there's a motion and a second to adopt the substitute. Any discussion on the substitute? All those in favor of adopting the substitute will say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the substitute is before us. Delegate Leftwich.
Mr. Chairman, the bill as substituted would require any out-of-state contribution to be itemized on the finance disclosure. This is to address a transparency concern of outside money influencing in-state elections. The bill reported from subcommittee on a vote of 4-0, and I so move.
All right, there's a motion and a second to report the substitute. Any discussion? Doug Lindsay. That's correct.
I believe that's what I indicated, Mr. Chairman.
Right. All right, any other discussion? Everyone in favor will vote yea. Those opposed, nay. Clerk will, has everyone voted? Clerk will close the roll. That bill is reported. Doug at Leftwich.
Mr. Chairman, next bill is 2034, patroned by Delegate McGuire. There's a substitute. I move the substitute.
All right, there's a motion to adopt the substitute. Is there, in a second, is there any discussion on the substitute? All those in favor of adopting the substitute will say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The substitute is before us. Delegate Leftwich.
Mr. Chairman, this bill simply creates a process in which a local registrar can be removed, so there's some consistency throughout the state to do so, and provides the registrar with some protections of due process. The subcommittee recommended reporting on a vote of 4-0, and I so move.
4-2.
I'm sorry, 4-2. I'm sorry.
Right. All right. Is there any other discussion on the resolution or on the bill?
Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Sickles.
I would like to ask the patron if this actually makes it harder for the electoral board to remove a registrar than it is already. Is that right? And if you could tell us why that is necessary.
Mr. Chairman, this does make it more difficult so that you have to have cause to let somebody go then because you just may not like their personality.
Mr. Chairman, speaking to the bill, I mean, it has been my experience that it is very, very difficult today to take a registrar who is not popular for many reasons, and we've had a lot of examples of mistakes that have been made in the administration of our electoral system and our election day operations, and that they have a lot of responsibility for that. And I think the current law is more than adequate based on our history in this area. So I would encourage people to vote no.
Okay, is there any other discussion on the bill? All right, all those in favor of reporting the what?
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
This does, oh, no, it's a different bill, okay.
Different bill, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I got to keep up.
Yeah, all right. All those in favor of reporting the substitute will vote yes. Those opposed, nay. Clerk will close the roll that the substitute is reported. Delegate Leftwich.
Mr. Chairman, next bill is House Bill 2625, patroned by Delegate Lindsay. And in light of the certain elections in this last cycle where you had multiple recounts occurring at one time, Delegate Lindsay's bill addresses a process in which to do that so that there's consistency across the state and avoids confusion in the election rooms. The subcommittee recommended reporting on a vote of 6-0, and I so move.
All right, there's a motion. Is there a second to report? Second to report House Bill 2625. Any discussion? All those in favor will vote yes. All right, clerk will close the roll. That bill is reported. Delegate Leftwich.
Mr. Chairman, the last bill from subcommittee report is House Bill 2764, patroned by Delegate Wilt. There are amendments, and so I move the amendments.
All right, there's a motion and a second to adopt the amendments to House Bill 2764. Is there any discussion on the amendments? All those in favor of adopting the amendments will say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the amended bill is before us. Delegate Leftwich.
Mr. Chairman, as amended, this bill requires a person who assists an applicant with the completion of a paper, and I emphasize the term paper voter registration application, or collects a completed paper voter registration application directly from an applicant to provide his name, his or her name, and telephone number indicate the group organization with which he is affiliated, if any. The amended bill, the subcommittee recommended reporting the amended bill on a vote of 4-2, and I so move.
All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Delegate Sickles.
ask the gentleman, how is this different from the bill that the governor vetoed last year on this, in this matter?
Is that,
Would the patron like to explain that?
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, basically adding the language about having, paper only. Other than that, the substance is.
So,
is
so
the
Mr.
same.
Chairman, so, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So isn't it true that maybe 95% of Virginians register to vote at the DMV electronically? Isn't that true?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know that statistic.
Well, Mr. Chairman, so I would ask the patron, is there a disparity here between people who use technology at the DMV or elsewhere to register to vote from those that are going to register in a voter drive somewhere? Won't we be treating people differently?
Mr. Chairman, the bill's directed at like a third party that's registering people, not the actual person that's registering to vote. So I don't see any disparity there. The registree, that's the proper term, has no effect on them. The bill is directed to a third party that is out doing a registration drive, if you will, and that's who it's. Mr. If I could, there was an example given in testimony in subcommittee about it. I think it was wasn't it a drive at a school or something, and someone there, the third party that was registering folks, was telling the registrees, folks that were registering, that they didn't have to put their social security number on, which was incorrect. And so what this would address that type of thing. Simply, it's having them put their contact information. If you're that third party, simply giving the registrar someone to be able to contact, say, hey, you're doing this wrong. Because when you're doing it wrong, it's an invalid registration.
Yeah, if I may just elaborate, I think this is, we have had problems in the past with these third-party groups that are trying to register people with them, filling out the forms incorrectly or even not turning in some forms and so forth. So I think this is just an effort to, if there are problems with the forms that a third-party group is turning in, this would give the registrars an opportunity to contact the third party, not the registered voter, but the third party, to give them guidance on what they may be doing wrong. And there is even language in the amended bill that says that, just because this information may not be provided or whatever, that is not grounds to reject the registration.
Mr. Chairman.
Doug Sickles.
Last year, we had some discussion about the delivery person issue. So an organization leaves some registration forms which you can get from the registrar. Anyone can go get some. They leave them at a place for people that go by, maybe some kind of handout area in the library, and then they come back and pick them up and take them to the registrar. Is that person supposed to sign on to this to say that they're the person who helped this person register to vote, if they're just picking them up and taking them to the registrar's office?
Mr. Chairman, I would say no.
Okay. All right, is there any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, this does have a fiscal impact, so we need to come upstairs.
Okay, you're making a substitute motion?
Yeah,
to report and
substitute to
refer?
report and refer to appropriations due to the fiscal impact of $65,000.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right. The motion is to report and refer to appropriations.
Yeah, I got it.
All right, all those in favor will vote yea, those opposed, nay. Clerk will close the roll. The bill is reported and referred. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Committee?
All right, Delegate Lefwich, does that complete your report?
Mr. Chair, that completes my report.
Okay, Delegate Adams, do you have a report?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Subcommittee number 3 met this past Wednesday morning, considered 4 bills, and recommends reporting 1. And that bill is House Bill 2046, patroned by Delegate McNamara. It affects the form of ballot and requires that on any ballot, the officers or the offices which are to be elected shall appear before any questions are presented. The testimony provided follows a recent test case in Delegate McNamara's locality where you had to flip the ballot before the offices to be elected were presented following a series of questions. In another precinct, there were on 2 different pieces of paper, and there was a great disparity between the number of participants on the actual election. And so we believe this is a good measure that reported unanimously.
All right.
I would so move that it be reported.
Second.
All right, so motion and a second to report House Bill 2046. Any discussion on that motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Delegate Sickles.
just for clarity, because we've had a couple of these bills the last couple of years for school boards and nonpartisan. Who does this cover again, Delegate Adams? Just for everybody in the audience knows. On the ballot order.
I believe it's all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Chairman, there's already procedures for people that have a Republican or Democratic nomination on how they get on the ballot. It's like first to the door.
Yeah.
And but on the nonpartisan elections, it's not that way. But we've changed that law to improve that last couple of years.
This doesn't affect that. What
Okay.
this does is simply say, I guess maybe some towns or whatever if there were questions on the ballot, they had them at the top, and then the
Oh, I'm sorry.
candidates for office were at the bottom. And this just says you got to list candidates for office before you list ballot questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of reporting will vote yes. Clerk will close the roll. That bill is reported. Delegate Adams, does that complete your report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, it does.
Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Sickles.
Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the 8 on our side here today that have not had a chance to vote for it, and on behalf of the women and men that have been working so hard across the Commonwealth in recent years, and particularly in the last 12 months, I move the passage of H.J. 579, a resolution to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment to the U.S. Constitution.
If I may, all right, it's H.J. 579.
H.J. 579.
All right, if I may get you to modify your motion, the appropriate motion would be to put it on the agenda for
Mr.
the
Chairman,
committee.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we place the H.J. 579 onto the docket.
All right. So motion and second to put H.J. 579 on the committee docket. That is a procedural motion, and this is a resolution that was heard in subcommittee and had a hearing in subcommittee and failed to report in subcommittee. All right, is there any discussion on this procedural motion? If not, all those in favor will vote yes, and all those opposed will vote no. Clerk will close the roll. That motion fails.
So moved.
Second.